Rumors start to spread throughout the town that the fourth progenitor actually exists and that it's someone without any relatives. People keep discussing that the fourth progenitor is a ruthless vampire who defies all human reasoning and is immortal. A couple is discussing such rumors when Koju passes by them and the girl's sandal breaks loose, which causes her to fall down. Koju gets a brain freeze when he looks at her bare neck and even bites down on his lip to distract himself. The next day, he studies for his exams during the summer vacations while his friends accompany him so that he doesn't slack off. They soon leave him after eating at his expense and he leaves with barely any dimes in his pocket. He soon realizes that he is being followed by someone, so he runs into a mall to lose his stalker. When he is leaving the mall, he runs into the stalker, who turns out to be a junior high school chick, and she calls him the fourth progenitor right off the bat. He pretends to be someone else and she calls him by his name next, which makes him pretend that she has got the wrong guy. He then walks away and some guys start to pester her. He keeps listening as the old geezers keep hitting on her and even try to force her to come with them. She uses brutal force to send one of the guys flying, and the other guy turns out to be a vampire. Suddenly a warning gets issued that there's a vampire in the area, which makes all the shops shut down and the vampire summons a familiar. The girl named Yukaina summons a weapon called Sekuru and fights against the vampire and his familiar. She takes his familiar down in one blow and is about to end him when Koju jumps between them and tells the vampire to run away. He scolds Yukaina for going too far, so she reminds him that it's forbidden for creatures to use magic or familiars. The wind blows suddenly, which reveals her plot, and she storms away after calling Koju disgusting. Turns out that they live on a man-made island called Itagami Island far from Tokyo, where all creatures of different types live together for government research and conservation purposes. Even though Koju was supposed to be a normal human, he also developed supernatural abilities a few months ago and became the fourth progenitor. The next day, he heads to the junior school to return Yukina's wallet, which he found the other day, but he doesn't find her there. He then recalls her holy grail, which climaxes him, and he has to bite his lips again to drink his blood to calm down his bloodlust. Yukaina spots him just then and tries to take her wallet back, but he demands to know who she is. She decides to take her wallet back by force, but suddenly her stomach starts grumbling and he gives the wallet back to her since it contains her money. She treats him to lunch, where she reveals that she is employed by the Lion King organization as a sword shaman and has been tasked to observe him. She explains that the progenitors have the power equal to a nation's military, and he tries explaining that he doesn't have any ulterior motives, rather he has been living on the same island before he even became a vampire. She doesn't believe that he was a human before, but he reveals that the previous fourth progenitor transferred her powers to him. He tries to recall what happened, but his head starts to hurt a lot and Yukaina realizes that he doesn't even understand the scale of his powers. She decides to keep him company for the time being and even asks about his plans for the day. Some time ago an incident happened in which the vampire named Aurora told Koju that she was leaving everything to him and then disappeared. In the past, the three saints of the Lion King organization tell Yukaina that the sacred treaty was formed between the humans and the three progenitors, which maintains balance in the world, but the fourth progenitor has the power to bring war and calamity. She was given her weapon Sekuru and was asked to observe and control Koju at all costs. In the present, Koju gives his makeup exams and finds Yukaina loitering outside his apartment building. She reveals that she is moving in his neighborhood and shows him her apartment, which is right beside him. Since her apartment is empty, he offers to accompany her to the shopping center later to buy some things for her house. He then visits his school, where his teacher Natsuki passes his makeup exams and asks him about the recent events that have been taking place in the island. Since she knows about his true identity, he doesn't say much and instead asks her about the Lion King organization. She declares that the Lion King organization is his natural enemy as a vampire and asks him to stay away from all its members. Later he heads to the mall with Yukaina and soon realizes that she doesn't even have basic information about household items, but rather sees everything as a weapon. They run into Koju's sister Nagisa in their building, and she turns out to be Yukina's classmate. She invites Yukaina to eat hot pot with them, and afterwards Koju explains to Yukaina that he wanted to eliminate evil and do all kinds of righteous things when he got his powers in the beginning, but he soon realized that he cannot handle his powers because he is a wuss. He then decided to remain in the background as a pathetic NPC character, and all of them then eat food together. Afterwards, Koju heads out to buy a drink and suddenly Yukaina rushes out in wet clothes because she has to keep observing him even if he goes out. He waits for her while she dries her clothes and they both head to the convenience store together. She also spots a cat toy machine on the way, so Koju tries to win a cat toy for her. Natsuki spots both of them from a distance and Koju thinks that he doesn't want to be found out. Just then an explosion occurs at a distance and Koju uses the chance to run away from Natsuki along with his gal. Yukaina spots a huge familiar at the explosion site, so she tells Koju to stay away from the disaster site due to his secret identity. She herself runs towards the site and soon sees a person who seems to be the familiar's master. Another mage attacks the vampire and absorbs the familiar with his powers. He is about to end the vampire's life when Yukaina jumps in between and reminds the other person that it's illegal to attack an injured creature. She takes out her weapon and he introduces himself as Deacon from the West European Church. She wonders why an exorcist is hunting down vampires and they both begin to fight each other. He manages to nick her leg slightly and his companion named Astarte attacks her with her familiar. Yukaina is about to get busted when suddenly Koju jumps in and saves her. Astarte attacks him with her familiar's full power and sends him flying. His blood spurts out and suddenly he starts to lose control as his powers leak from his body. The next morning, it gets announced that a lightning strike caused the explosion and that the damage is estimated to be around 50 billion yen, although there was no mortal damage to any lives. Yukaina and Koju walk to school and she reveals that she isn't planning to report to the organization about the incident because it may reflect badly on him. On the way he explains to her that he has inherited some familiars from the previous progenitor Aurora, but they still don't accept him and it becomes hard to control them, especially when they sense another familiar nearby. He explains that they don't accept him because he is a virgin vampire who has never drunk anyone's blood, and his friend Ye spots the both of them. Koju introduces Yukaina to him and Yukaina then walks away with the excuse to meet Nagisa. Later at class, Koju's friend Asagi yaps to him about how she helped the city management division in their repairs, and she even offers to share her history report with him. Some of their classmates get a picture of the newly transferred Yukaina and they ask Koju to introduce them to her through Nagisa. Just then Natsuki arrives and asks Koju to come with her to explain why he was loitering around at midnight with Yukaina, which makes his classmates glare at him. He and Yukaina meet Natsuki and she explains that similar attacks have been happening in the past 2 months which are targeting demons, so Koju needs to stop loitering around because he can also be attacked. They both leave and Yukaina explains to Koju that they need to catch Deacon and his minion Astarte to clear him from the criminal charges. Later they both discuss how they can find Deacon's hideout place and they decide to look into businesses that are registered under Lotharingia, where Deacon's Orthodox Church is from. Koju seeks out Asagi to help him out since she works with the government division and she looks into Lotharingia business for his sake. She discovers a pharmaceutical company that recently pulled out of Japan and which was involved with homunculus modification. They both head to the abandoned production facility where Yukaina decides to head inside by herself, but Koju somehow convinces her to let him accompany her. They both discover a bunch of experimental homunculus inside and Astarte walks out from among them with a warning that they should both head away because the island is going to sink soon. She explains that the island has a cornerstone which is soon going to be lost, after which the island will sink, and Deacon appears to say that his dream is to find the cornerstone. Koju becomes furious as he realizes that Astarte has been implanted with a familiar who will soon consume her life, and Deacon explains that the implanted familiars in her body have already absorbed the other familiar, due to which she has now become the ultimate weapon. He points out to Yukaina that the Lion organization has also made her a weapon in the same way, since they also take in unwanted children and groom them to become weapons. Astarte summons her familiar and Koju attacks her head-on. She sends him flying and Deacon reveals that he used the data from Yukina's weapon to perfect the familiar's magic. He approaches Yukaina and is about to finish her when Koju jumps between them. Deacon slices through his body and even cuts his head off, leaving Yukaina in shock. He then walks away with Astarte while Yukaina screams in pain. At the Itagami Island Management Corporation Security Department, Asagi chit-chats with an AI bot when there's suddenly an explosion nearby and the AI reports that 2 intruders are trying to get into their facility. Deacon and Astarte break through one of the corporation's gates and walk inside after taking down all the guards. Meanwhile, Koju comes back to life slowly as all the blood goes back into his body, and just when he wakes up, Yukaina starts to whine to him about how he should have told her about his powers. She keeps whining that her parents sold her to the organization and that no one would have been sad if she had died. He trips on top of her and hugs her tight as he assures her he would be sad without her. He then sits back again while she calls him a creep. They feel an earthquake which shouldn't be possible for a man-made island, and Koju reads on his phone about the attack on the Management Corporation office. Asagi runs outside to find the building collapsed around her and she gets a call from Koju. They discuss how Deacon is the attacker and she tells him that he is heading towards the anchor block where all the gates are connected and that the block absorbs all the sea waves to maintain the stability of the island. He asks her whether there's any treasure at the anchor block and she starts looking into her data to figure it out. She breaks into a protected file and learns about a top-level secret which she also shares with Koju. On the other end, Yukaina nicks her neck and asks Koju to drink her blood so that her familiars can finally accept him. She knows that he wants to save all the people on the island and he finally starts to drink her blood. Deacon finally locates the treasure which Itagami Island stole from Lotharingia Church and he orders Astarte to remove the shackles around the treasure to bring havoc on the island people. Astarte reveals that some of the conditions have not been due to which she cannot obey his command and just then Koju and Yukaina arrive. They spot the hand of the saint which is actually the treasure that Deacon is after and Deacon explains that the person named Itagami formed the man-made island 40 years ago after expertly designing the place over the intersection of the dragon veins and he intended to use the underlying spiritual energy to nourish the place but he had to use the saint's hand to fuel the cornerstone. Yukaina suggests that he can lodge a complaint to the government to retrieve the relic because there's advanced technology now which can fuel the cornerstone but Deacon only believes in taking revenge for his land's ancient relic. She attacks Astarte while Koju attacks Deacon and they all fight against one another. Koju then summons his fifth familiar who attacks Deacon and Astarte jumps in between to block his attack. She manages to deflect the familiar's attack and the whole building starts to shake. Since her defense has already become weak, Yukaina attacks her once again which breaks her barrier and Koju's familiar lands the finishing blow on her. They both take down Deacon as well and Koju then drinks Astarte's blood to consume her familiar. He explains to Yukaina that she can live longer this way but she just calls him a disgusting freak. Somewhere else Yaze talks to a crow about how Yukaina was deliberately sent to Koju to awaken her powers and that she will become his queen. At Yukina's apartment she packs her stuff and tells Koju that she violated a lot of organization's orders due to which she is leaving now. Suddenly she receives a delivery which turns out to be her repaired weapon and makes her realize that the Lion King organization wants her to keep working for now. A cat demon runs away to the port and tries to bomb the place with a wireless detonator to avenge his comrade. His detonator doesn't work and Natsuki pops up out of nowhere to taunt him about his affiliation with the infamous Christoph Gardos and Black Panther organization. She bends space with her magic to dodge his attack and he calls her the Witch of the Void. She ties him up and leaves his interrogation with the island guard. The next day, Koju walks into Yukaina changing her clothes and she beats him into a pulp. They all head to school together where he keeps arguing with Yukaina that he wasn't peeping on her and Nagisa reveals that she and Yukaina are both going to cheer for the guys in the sport ball tournament after all the boys begged Yukaina to cheer for them. Asagi and Koju arrive at the class to discover that they have both been grouped together in the badminton team for the upcoming sports tournament and Asagi starts to act all cringe while Koju doesn't mind the arrangement. Some shady dudes approach a head researcher Makamura and declare that he is in violation of some trade control code. Natsuki steps forward and tells him to give in because another one of Christoph Gardo's subordinates is in their possession. He suddenly turns into a demon which makes Natsuki wonder whether he is a sympathizer of the Black Death faction. She orders Astarte to deal with him and Astarte in return takes him down with her familiar. The researcher gets apprehended and they discover that the supply they were looking for has already been moved somewhere else. Asagi changes into the sports outfit for the badminton practice and her friend tells her to be more confident in her look since a junior high chick like Yukaina cannot beat her. Meanwhile Koju slacks off by buying a drink and suddenly two familiars attack him. He keeps dodging their attacks and Yukaina intervenes by attacking them. She takes care of the familiars quickly and reveals that the creatures were actually Shikigami who are meant to deliver some kind of message. They discover a letter on the ground and just then Asagi spots the both of them together. She assumes the worst and walks away to leave them alone. Later they both discuss how the letter is from a person named Vatler of Ardil and that he ultimately belongs to the Warlord's Dominion. The Warlord Dominion is actually ruled by the first progenitor who is the master of 72 familiars and Vatler is a person who serves him. Yukaina assumes that Vatler must be a pureblood vampire born of the first progenitor's line and the shopkeeper points out how they seem so close since they are always shopping together. They both head home and discuss who should be Koju's partner. He thinks he can take Natsuki but Yukaina offers to go with him. She starts fretting about her dress and they both arrive at her apartment to discover that the Lion King organization has already sent her a custom-made dress. Later they both arrive at the cruise ship where Vatler's party is taking place and Yukaina keeps whining about her short dress. They don't see Vatler anywhere at the main party so they head on the upper deck to find him. They reach the deck and suddenly get attacked by a familiar so Koju uses his body to block his attack. Vatler then steps forward and apologizes to Koju for trying to test his skills. A girl jumps between them and asks her to stay away from Yukaina. She then lunges at Yukaina to hug her and turns out that she is actually Yukina's old friend Sayaka who was in charge of international magical crimes at Foreign Affairs Division. She warns Koju to stay away once again and also introduces herself as a war dance from the Lion King organization who is tailing Vatler for now. Asagi whines to Yaze that Koju may be having an affair with Yukaina and Yaze suggests to her that it's possible that Yukaina may have some dirt on him due to which he is just tagging along with her. He asks her to somehow seduce Koju and then shuts the call. Vatler tells Koju that he used to love the previous progenitor Aurora, due to which he loves him too now, and he guesses that Koju has drunk Yukina's blood, which makes him declare that she is his love rival now. Yukina asks him his reason to come to the island, so he reveals that he has come to look into Christoph Gardos. He explains that Christoph is an ex-war soldier, now a terrorist who heads a radical group called Black Death Emperor faction, and that Christoph has now come to Itagami Island to make a name for himself. His ultimate goal is to abolish the sacred treaty, and Koju realizes that Vatler intends to lure Christoph towards his ship so that he can deal with him. Vatler teases him that he will use his familiars to sink the island along with Christoph, and Yukina declares that she will deal with Christoph herself. He in return asks her to prove herself as the sword shaman. Asagi solves a coding puzzle which reveals the term Nalakuvra, and she then gets a message from Yaes telling her how to set a honey trap for Koju. The next morning, Koju wakes up to find Asagi on top of him, and he tries to push her away. They both end up falling on the floor together, and Yukina and Nagisa discover the both of them. Yukina storms off, and Koju tells Asagi that he isn't going out with Yukina. At the train station, he approaches Yukina to defend his honor, and she advises him to keep his bloodlust in check by avoiding such situations. They both approach Natsuki to get some answers about Vatler and Christoph, and discover Astarte in her room casually serving her tea. She explains that Astarte has to serve 3 years probation, due to which she has decided to take her in. She then tells them to leave Christoph alone and that his faction is looking for an ancient weapon which is currently unusable. Turns out that the ancient weapon is Nalakuvra, which can destroy human civilization, and Natsuki reveals that the weapon has been smuggled into the island, but it was stolen afterwards. She reveals that the island guard has found a place where the weapon may be stored, and that the weapon cannot be decrypted by anyone at this stage. She also warns Koju to be cautious around Vatler, since he has devoured many vampire elders for his benefits. Later, Yukina suggests to him that he should try drinking her blood again to get better control of his powers, but he doesn't think it's a good idea. She feels self-conscious and storms off like the biggest pick-me girl. Koju approaches Asagi and asks her to look into Nalakuvra. Since she has also come across the name, she decides to help him out, and she takes him to the student council room next. They break inside, and she discovers through their computer that Nalakuvra is a biological weapon which cannot be used. A teacher barges inside, due to which they both hide under the table, and Koju starts to have a nosebleed due to her proximity. Later, the both of them discuss the situation at the school roof, and she leaves him to buy a cold drink. Suddenly, Sayaka attacks Koju and keeps coming at him. She even manages to scratch him slightly, which causes him to release his powers, and Asagi spots him just then. Koju's powers go berserk, which send Asagi flying into a wall, and his powers start to destroy the whole building. Yukina summons her powers and attacks his power source, which stops him. She demands to know what he and Sayaka were doing on the roof, and then spots Asagi knocked out. She scolds them for behaving so recklessly, and then takes Asagi to the infirmary where Astarte tends to her. Asagi wakes up after a while, and Yukina lies to her that her friend Sayaka was jealous of her, due to which she was attacking Koju. She doesn't believe her and keeps doubting her relationship with Koju as well. Meanwhile, Koju and Sayaka stay at the roof, and they argue about how Yukina has become too involved in his life. He admits that she has become entangled in a lot of his mess, and they keep yapping about Yukina endlessly. Suddenly, a group of demons barge inside the school, and they rush inside the infirmary first. Nagisa tries to escape while screaming, and Yukina has to knock her down before a demon can attack her. Christoph steps forward and asks Asagi to do a task for him, after which he will release her. Astarte tries to intervene, but he simply shoots her and takes the girls away. Yaes spots them taking the girls away, so he follows them using his powers and learns that Christoph plans to take them off the island through a helicopter. He even uses his sonic powers to pursue them, but suddenly gets stopped by Vatler himself. Vatler reveals that he cannot let him interfere with his plans just yet, and then blows him away with his magic. Asagi tells Yukina that Nagisa almost died in a demon-related accident 4 years ago, due to which she is really scared of demons. She even apologizes to her for pulling her into such an accident, and Christoph steps in with the Nalakuvra tablet. He explains that he wants her to decipher the tablet to let him eliminate the first progenitor, and he blackmails her that he can start the Nalakuvra right now as well, but only she can give him the key to control it. Koju and Sayaka also head to the port after Sayaka tends to Astarte's wounds. They arrive at the port and come across Natsuki, who recognizes Sayaka. Even Vatler joins them, and suddenly a bioweapon emerges which starts to attack all the soldiers. The ugly-looking thing turns out to be Nalakuvra, and elsewhere someone named Grigor reports to Christoph about the activation of the bioweapon. Yukina asks him why Vatler is helping him out, and he makes an excuse that the vampire probably wants a plaything in his hands. He leaves them with a warning that Asagi should quickly decode the tablet. A spirit engulfs Nagisa's body and tells Asagi not to rush too much because a boy will definitely buy time for her. Vatler throws Ye's body towards Koju and then summons 2 of his familiars so that he can fight the bioweapon himself. Koju gets a call from Yukaina who tells him to restrain Nalakuvra for now and not destroy it. He tells Vatler to back off and steps forward to fight with the bioweapon himself. He fights with Nalakuvra and almost gets his bum busted after a minute. Sayaka steps in to help him and she reveals that her sword can nullify all attacks. She then jumps on the weapon and tries to hit in, but Nalakuvra erects a barrier around itself to block off her attack. The weapon can adapt itself according to its opponents and it then starts shooting lasers at both of them, due to which they make a run for it. Nalakuvra then begins to fly in the air to make its escape and Koju summons his familiar to push him down. The impact ends up throwing all of them to the underground structure where Nalakuvra gets separated from Koju and Sayaka. Sayaka trips on Koju and he ends up accidentally touching her melons, hitting a jackpot. He then apologizes to her as he remembers how she hates men so much. Nalakuvra climbs up the rubble just when the floating port structure starts to slowly fall apart and Koju makes a run for it with Sayaka to find a way upwards. Asagi tries to break the code while Yukaina knocks out her guards and comes across a bunch of shut-down Nalakuvras. Kristoff spots her and reveals that he plans to destroy the World Dominion, which is the area ruled by the first progenitor. He turns into a demon and they both fight against one another. The fight moves to the upper deck where Yaze throws Yukaina her weapon and she launches her ultimate move on Kristoff. The move slices his arm away, but just then his guards appear with Asagi and Nagisa. The Nalakuvra army also comes on the deck, making Yukaina realize that the code has been deciphered and Kristoff can now control everything. Sayaka and Koju keep searching for a way out and he gives her his jacket due to her wet clothes. She then whines about her useless past and then offers her blood to him to help him. She then bares her neck and he starts to quickly drink her blood. When he is done, he summons another familiar of his which flies high in the sky and Kristoff rushes inside the deck on seeing it. Natsuki teleports herself on Yukina's ship and offers to take Asagi and Nagisa to a space safe. Yukaina gets a call from Asagi's computer telling her about the control command of one of the Nalakuvra. Meanwhile, Koju and Sayaka fight one of the Nalakuvras and his familiar attacks the weapon with them. Kristoff appears inside one of the Nalakuvras and Yukaina also joins Koju in his fight. They all collectively take on the army of Nalakuvras and his familiars blow all the weapons away. Kristoff's weapon doesn't get damaged and soon the rest of the weapons also repair themselves quickly before joining him. Yukaina reveals that Asagi has implanted a virus in all the weapons which can make them self-destruct and that they need to bring the voice file into the Kristoff's commanding unit to activate the virus. Sayaka then summons her weapon and uses it, which temporarily stops all the functions of Nalakuvras. Kristoff jumps outside and both Sayaka and Yukaina work together to take him down. Yukaina then jumps on the Nalakuvra and throws her mobile inside it, which contains the voice note. The virus gets activated and all the Nalakuvras self-destruct instantly. Yukaina then confronts Koju and he admits that he had to drink Sayaka's blood to awaken his powers. At a distance, the third leader of the Lion King organization gives Vatler an appointment letter for an embassy and he tells her that he did everything for his own amusement. Afterwards, Koju visits Asagi in the hospital and fills her in about the Nalakuvras, after which she kisses him on the mouth. After a moment, Nagisa and Yukaina also arrive in the room and feel suspicious that something happened. A hot chick and her minions attack a ship in search for another girl, but they discover that the girl has already escaped. She then unveils her angelic magic on the remaining survivors and takes down the whole ship. On the other side, Koju keeps thinking about what happened and he tells Yukaina that Sayaka keeps calling him late at night. He thinks that she must be worried about Yukaina, while Yukaina thinks he is an idiot for taking a hint. At class, Asagi tells Koju to meet her after class and not to tell anyone else about her invitation. He later visits the art room where she asks him to model for her art project and he starts to model for her while he thinks about how they met for the first time. She soon calls him boring and asks him to change into some clothes that she borrowed from the drama club. He starts to whine about the whole thing, so she offers to change into some clothes too and even starts stripping. He quickly turns out being the gentleman that he is and she takes off all her clothes. He then agrees to change into a costume and she makes him wear a formal dinner suit while she herself wears a maid outfit. She then starts to take his pictures, so in return he also takes a bunch of her pictures. At the end she tells him that she knows he is hiding something and asks him to come clean. They agree to meet on the upcoming weekend and she then leaves. He comes across Yukaina in the hallway, who had been watching him all along. He asks her whether he should spill the beans about his identity to Asagi and she assures him that she will always remain at his side no matter what he decides to do. He then sees Nagisa and a boy from her class giving her a letter. Later at night, Sayaka calls to tell him that she is soon coming to Itagami Island with someone important from the land of Aldager, but Koju assumes that she must be really busy and wishes her good luck on her next mission. The next day, Koju keeps following Nagisa to check up on her, and he even barges into the roof to catch her red-handed. Turns out that Nagisa was just trying to find a home for a stray cat that she had found, due to which she asked her classmate for help. Nagisa reveals that she was helping her classmate Canon to look for homes for stray cats, and Canon also greets Koju. They all chit-chat with each other, after which Canon takes Koju and Yukaina to a church where she grew up many years ago. The church turns out to be wrecked, but they all see a bunch of cats there who are all stray. Yukaina starts playing with them, and Koju notices that Canon can pretty much become a nun because of how innocent she looks. Yaze and Natsuki observe a girl who was apprehended after she attacked the demon ward, and they discuss how she is a normal human but some of her organs have been eaten. Vatler joins them and reveals that a very important ship of the Order of the Ring from Aldager has been missing, which makes Natsuki think that maybe the Aldager royal family is involved in the case. Vatler warns her not to involve Akatsuki in the case because he cannot yet win against this enemy, and at the same time a scientist experiments on Canon in a spooky facility. The group finds a guy who can take care of all the stray cats, and Koju's classmate Rin informs him that she used to be close to Canon back when she was in the monastery, but an incident happened a long time ago which killed everyone other than Canon. She tells him to take care of Canon and walks away. Canon and Yukaina then bring another stray cat that they found, and Natsuki spots. She reminds them that it's prohibited to bring animals to the school and asks Koju to accompany her somewhere as a favor for overlooking their mistake. Later at night, Koju and Yukaina meet up with her in a start, and she reveals that two masked people have been fighting every few days in the town, and they end up destroying a lot of area around them, because of which they need to be caught. Natsuki launches fireworks to distract the townspeople and then teleports everyone to the city tower, where two masked people have already appeared. They both fight against one another, and Natsuki and Yukaina rush towards them to capture them. They use a special magic which the others fail to guess, and even send Yukaina flying. The damage from the fight takes its toll on the city tower, due to which it starts to fall down, and Natsuki uses her magic to hold it straight. Koju summons his familiar, who directly attacks one of the flying masked people, and it manages to block the familiar's attack. The masked person then rushes at the group, but another masked person lunges at her and pushes her down. The masked person starts to ruthlessly kill its partner, and her mask breaks open only to reveal that it's actually Canon. She eats her partner's organs and then flies away. The next day, Koju and Yukaina head to Canon's official address, which turns out to be her dad Kanase's company research facility. They meet her dad's secretary Beatrice there, who informs them that Kanase and Canon are both at a research facility outside the island and offer them a ride to the facility. Yukaina whines during the helicopter ride about being afraid, and Koju holds her hand like a little kid. The driver then drops them off at a remote point on an island and flies away, leaving them with no clue of where to go. They soon come across some defense barriers which indicate that a fight took place recently, and decide to wait for rescue to find them. Sayaka looks for clues at the monastery where Canon grew up, and she meets with Yaze there. He asks her to not tell anyone about his real identity, and also offers to tell her about Yukaina and Koju's location as a favor. Just then Asagi and Nagisa arrive at the monastery, and Asagi recognizes Sayaka as the psycho woman who had attacked Koju previously. They both begin arguing with one another while Yaze wonders how he should get out of the mess. Koju summons his familiar to help him in fishing, but his plan backfires when his familiar fails. Yukaina scolds him for acting like a brainless monkey and leads him to the area where she has cooked food from the coconuts that she found around the island. They both eat the food together, and he starts to become worried for Nagisa, who he left behind. He realizes that he had plans with Asagi during the weekend too, which makes him even more worried, and Yukaina admits that he likes his caring side. Asagi manages to locate Koju's location through her alpha skills, and once again she and Sayaka begin to argue about their connection with Koju. Sayaka tells the group that she was supposed to be guarding the princess of Aldager called La Folia, but she went missing recently, and just then Koju roams around the island to look for Yukaina, but instead comes across a chick taking a bath in the dark. Koju starts to feel bloodlust after looking at her, so he bites his own tongue to draw blood, and meanwhile the girl disappears from the water. Yukaina appears behind him in all her glory and threatens to take his life. He explains that he was looking at another girl who looked just like Canon, and then gives her his jacket. She wears it, and they both start to look for the other girl in the forest. Soon they spot a ship approaching the island, and before they can step forward for help, the soldiers rush outside. They spot the both of them and start to attack them, so Yukaina jumps into action and attacks them back. The robot guards get up again and surround both of them. Suddenly the same girl from before appears and uses a special curse gun to take down all the robots. She introduces herself as La Folia and reveals that all the robots are from Kanase's company. She also informs them that the ship contains even more automata machines due to which it needs to be sunk. The ship's robots start to come out one by one, so Koju rushes to the scene and summons his fifth familiar, who takes down the whole ship along with the robots. Beatrice joins Canon and asks her about the fake angel situation. He discusses with her that the angel has reached level 7 due to which they cannot outright control her, but they should still be able to market her somehow, and that her illegitimate royal blood enabled her to survive till this point. Beatrice informs him that she has apprehended the fourth progenitor along with Yukaina, and they both decide to use him as a catalyst for the final stage upgradation of Canon, who is their angel. La Folia tells Koju and Yukaina that she was attacked on her way by Kanei's company because they are after her blood, and that Kanei was actually a royal court mage at Aldager Palace who learned some magic rituals that involve the blood of a royal. She then drops the bomb on them that Canon is actually her illegitimate aunt who was born out of an affair, and Kanei adopted her to use her blood. They tell her about her fight as a masked person, and she realizes that Kanei has turned her into an angel foe, which is a technique to artificially ascend a normal person into a higher being. A boat approaches the island and Kanei steps forth to meet La Folia. He reveals that Canon has consumed 6 of her companions and that the company intends to use the artificial angels as the next brand new weapons and sell them. They reveal Canon and order her to fight Koju so that they can pitch to the whole world that a faux angel can take down a progenitor. Yukaina rushes in to fight her and she easily blows her away. Beatrice starts to fight with Yukaina while Canon begins to ruthlessly attack Koju, due to which he has no choice but to summon 2 of his familiars. He fights with her head on, but one of her attacks pierces his chest and he collapses on the ground. She then starts to have a mental breakdown which causes everything around her to freeze, and Kanei and his group run away in fear while La Folia and Yukaina block Koju from Canon's breakdown attack. Sayaka takes down one of the ships of Kanei's company and meets with Natsuki, who informs her that La Folia is at the same island with Koju. They both see the island from a distance, which is covered in frost. Yukaina forms a barrier around Koju to ward off Canon's spell, and they notice that Koju's wound from the angel's attack isn't healing. La Folia reveals that Koju must have a familiar which can heal wounds from a faux angel and starts stripping her clothes to feed him her blood. She is about to go down on him when Yukaina interrupts her and offers to feed him instead. La Folia quickly agrees, making Yukaina realize that it was her plan all along, and Yukaina then nicks her wrist to draw blood. She takes some of her blood in her mouth and kisses him, making him drink her blood. His vampire instincts awaken and he pushes her down as he starts drinking her blood. His wound heals up and he wakes up just when Yukaina faints. La Folia tells him about the ongoing situation and she notices that his familiar isn't waking up, so she offers him her own blood as well. Since girls keep coming at him left and right, the Sigma starts to drink her blood as well, and soon Canon's consciousness starts to stir as she thinks about how she has lost everything in this world. Koju and his harem break through the ice only to come across Kanei, and Kanei informs them that he always took care of Canon as his own daughter because her mother was his sister. He starts yapping endlessly about how Canon can become the higher being, and Beatrice arrives with 2 more masked girls. She apparently cloned them behind Kanei's back and now plans to kidnap La Folia to make more clones. She then attacks Koju, so Yukaina jumps between and starts to fight both of the masked girls as well as Beatrice. The ice breaks behind them, revealing Canon in her angelic form, and meanwhile Yukaina manages to take down Beatrice. La Folia also takes down her guard and Beatrice launches another one of her attacks on her. La Folia summons a holy sword through her magic and uses it to pass judgment on Beatrice, thus taking her down once and for all. Yukaina also finds Beatrice remote, which she uses to turn off the masked girls. Canon faces Koju finally and launches an attack on him, but he blocks all of her attacks with an erected barrier. He keeps recalling her true generous nature and summons his new familiar, which turns out to be a 2-headed dragon. The dragon attacks Canon and consumes her heavenly barrier. She falls down but once again summons her powers, and this time Yukaina uses her weapon to land the finishing blow on her. All the artificial energy in her gets released in the air, and Koju uses his familiar to consume all the energy. Sayaka and Natsuki arrive in their ship and Canon wakes after a while. La Folia tells her that her bad days are over and that she is her family. Later Ye's company takes in Kanei and decides to make him work for their agenda. Natsuki decides to become Canon's guardian, and La Folia also bids goodbye to both Yukaina and Koju. She kisses Koju on the lips before leaving, and Sayaka tell him to die, after which she follows La Folia. Asagi and Nagisa also witness the atrocity, and Asagi declares that she was just greeting him earlier when she was smooching him. Sayaka bids goodbye to La Folia at the airport, and at the last moment La Folia sees a poster about a Halloween festival that takes place in Itagami Island once a year. She feels like attending it, but Sayaka reminds her that she has already postponed her return twice. They both head inside the airport and suddenly get teleported into the demon district of the island. Meanwhile, Yukaina and Koju head to school in a cramped train where they discuss the upcoming festival and they notice a creep feeling up a girl on the train. Koju rushes towards him to catch him, but just then the train stops and everyone rushes out. Nagisa's homeroom teacher Sasasaki accidentally catches Koju as the creep who is the girls, and Koju clears himself for the sake of his virgin honor. Natsuki then appears wearing a high school girl uniform to reveal that she has already caught the creep after she learned that a lot of the girls were having the same complaints in the train. Later at night, two sisters who are actually infamous criminal magicians called the Meyer sisters attack a company with their familiar. The tentacle monster attacks the squad and takes all of the guards down easily. The next day, Koju visits the station to pick his childhood friend Yuma up, who is visiting for the Halloween festival. All of his friends gather to accompany him, which makes Koju whine a lot. Yuma turns out to be a girl, much to Asagai's disappointment, and she then greets everyone. They all visit different cafes and tourist places together. They also visit the skyscraper where Yukaina whines like a pathetic wuss about the height, and Koju helps her by holding her hand. Yuma notices their closeness and asks Koju whether the two of them are dating, which makes him quickly deny the allegation. Asagai and Yaze both get a call telling them about some disaster that occurred relating to the island's defense system, and at the same time Sayaka calls Koju to inform him about their teleportation. Yaze and Asagai rush outside while Astarte arrives from the other side and tells Koju that she cannot find Natsuki. She reveals that Natsuki has given her instructions to follow in case she goes missing, and that they need to protect Canon at all cost. On the other side, Sayaka's phone shuts down, which leaves her and La Folia stranded at a deserted place. Yukaina takes Canon and Astarte to her home while Koju stays with Yuma and Nagisa at his place. He gets ready to take his bath, and just when he enters his bath, he ends up getting teleported to Yukina's bath where Astarte and Canon are both taking a bath. He somehow leaves from the crime scene and surrenders himself to Yukina's wrath willingly. He reports everything to her, and they discuss that maybe there is a space distortion around the Itagami Island which is causing these teleportation incidents. Koju returns to his home and comes across Yuma all of a sudden, which shocks him. He drops his glass and she then applies bandages on his finger as they discuss their childhood. She asks him how he would feel if she isn't a human anymore, and he assures her that she would remain his friend despite her identity. She then starts to come on to him weirdly and even kisses his mouth, which makes him pass out. Later he wakes up and realizes that his spirit has shifted into Yuma's body. Koju rushes to Yukina's house and she lets him in. All the girls seem to be in the middle of choosing their outfits, which makes the freak realize that they have let their guard down because they think that he is Yuma. He then announces to them that he is not actually Yuma. Meanwhile, Asagai tries to locate the virus in the government system which is disrupting all the systems on the island, but she fails to find anything. Since there has been no cyber attack, she deduces that maybe the space around the island itself has been disrupted, and an AI bot reports to her that a similar incident happened 10 years ago which involved the Witch of Nadaria. An organization named Libraries members were also reported to enter the island some days ago, and Asagai begins to deep dive into the data to figure out a solution. The girls all ask Koju various questions to confirm his identity, and he reveals to them that he swapped bodies with Yuma, probably when she kissed him, after which Yukaina beats him up. Sayaka wakes up in bed with La Folia, and they both had been teleported into the room last night after multiple teleportations. They discuss the space anomaly around Itagami Island and what they should do next. Yukaina theorizes that Yuma must be a witch who can distort space in order to control Koju's body, and that she must have some mission of her own. Meanwhile, the Meyer sisters use a powerful grimoire to distort the space, and Vatler appears to confront them. One of the sisters uses a grimoire spell to attack him, but the spell turns out to be too powerful on her and it backfires on her. Yuma appears in Koju's body and introduces herself as the daughter of a witch of Nadaria called Ava's daughter. Asagai does some alpha-level coding to take care of the island's traffic problem and then heads to sleep for some rest. The girls take Koju out to a cafe to eat some sweets, and Yukaina proposes that she can use her weapon Sekuru to break the spell that Yuma has used on him, but she wants to use it on his body instead, since harming Yuma's body may damage her long term. Yuma declares that she wants to free her mom Ava from the magical prison she is held in, and that Vatler should look away because the prison break will release a number of infamous prisoners that he can fight for entertainment. She then starts to use the grimoire to launch her spell, and both Yukaina and Koju detect the spell, so they rush outside to face her. They end up getting teleported to a place near Yuma, and the island defense forces also surround Yuma to stop her. Koju and Yukaina try to enter the Keystone Gate to face Yuma, but they end up getting teleported again and again to different places. Koju then gets sent a picture of a sleeping Asagai along with directions on how to use the teleportation to quickly get to his desired place. On the other side, Yaze and Asagai's AI bot discuss how they are helping Koju out and that Asagai's hard work will definitely bear fruit. Koju and Yukaina run around the town and teleport various times. He recalls the first time he met Yuma and how he made her help him because they had to pick a hat from a hill. They both finally teleport beside Yuma and both childhood friends face each other. In the past, when Yuma was a child, her attendants would tell her that her mother Ava is in a prison barrier in Itagami barrier and she created her in order to break her free one day. She kept wondering what will happen to her once she fulfills her purpose. In the present, Koju asks her to give his body back to her and he spots Vatler, who tells him that the prison barrier will break soon, which will release all the powerful prisoners from the magical realm. He quickly realizes what Yuma intends to do and one of the Meyer sisters called Octavia's familiar suddenly grabs both Yukaina and him. La Folia and Sayaka arrive at the scene suddenly and help both of them break free from the tentacles of Octavia's familiar. The grimoire releases a light into the sky and a prison emerges out of nowhere outside the Itagami island. La Folia presents Kanace to the group, who has been temporarily released to help them out, and he reveals that the witch needs more power at this point to properly materialize the prison. Yuma heads to the prison by herself and Kanace informs the group that they cannot follow her, but they can try opening a gate near the prison to let them enter. La Folia and Sayaka stay behind to take on the Meyer sisters while Kanace summons a gate which allows Yukaina and Koju to teleport near the prison barrier. They come across Yuma there, who starts sharing her sob story that she was a test tube baby who was forced to grow up quickly to break her mother free, and that the library officially intended to sacrifice all the island people to break the barrier, but they then decided to use his body to break the spell. She summons her own familiar, the Blue Knight, as well as one of Koju's familiars to attack the barrier and ends up breaking it successfully. She then rushes inside and the duo follows her only to come across Natsuki, who is actually the key to the prison barrier. La Folia and Sayaka struggle to defeat the tentacle monster of the Meyer sisters and they discuss how to take it on. Meanwhile, Yuma reveals that Natsuki is actually the door and the key to the prison barrier, and that she has been sleeping in the prison for the past 10 years to keep it close. Turns out that she was using magic to produce an illusion of herself which was operating normally on the island, and Koju tries to convince Yuma to back off with the power of his smooth words. It doesn't work out and Yuma then attacks Natsuki's body, but Yukaina blocks her attack. La Folia and Sayaka realize that the witches are using a forest as their familiar, so both of them launch their ultimate attacks to burn the forest down. Yukaina takes on Yuma's familiar and easily pushes it back. She is about to attack Yuma next, but she quickly evades her attack and her familiar attacks her again. A lot of rubble falls on Natsuki, but Koju manages to save her and both Yuma and Koju's bodies start to bleed. Yuma decides to keep pushing herself and Yukaina rushes at her with her weapon to end the spell, which is swapping both their bodies. She hesitates before piercing Koju's body, due to which Yuma's familiar punches her back. Up next, Koju grabs her weapon and attacks Yuma straight on. He manages to throw the weapon straight at her, but Yuma's familiar blocks it midway. Yukaina jumps in the air and pushes the weapon ahead, which passes through the familiar and hits Yuma's body. The Meyer sisters get taken away by the police while Koju wakes up in his own body and asks Yukaina to give blood to him. He tells Yuma that she can finally be free now, and Natsuki also wakes up to reveal that she was just preserving her strength. She decides to stop pursuing her goal and to start living her life as a normal girl. Suddenly a sword pierces her stomach, which distracts Natsuki as well, and Ava, the Witch of Nadaria, uses this chance to pierce her as well. She takes down the prison key and declares that she was only waiting for Natsuki to let her guard down. Koju starts to have a breakdown like a typical teenager, and outside the prison Vatler thinks that he should sink the whole prison by breaking its main lock. Suddenly a small chick appears and unleashes a powerful familiar on him. Her familiar takes him down instantly, and he realizes the mystery behind Akatsuki's sudden progenitor status and how this chick has been keeping an eye on Koju all this time. Vatler starts to laugh out like a maniac while the chick returns to a doctor who is her companion. Yuma also collapses on the ground and the actual prison barrier appears around the whole prison. A Seijai roams around the streets and her AI reports to her that an unregistered sub-float has appeared around the island, but she just ignores him. She then notices a little girl who keeps following her around. Yuma's mother Ava appears in the prison and sucks the magic out of Yuma's body. She faints on the spot and Koju readies himself to fight her, but she reminds him that his power may damage the prison barrier as well as Natsuki. She reveals that she has used a spell on Natsuki which has removed her memories and her time perception, but she escaped into the town before she could finish her off. Some of Ava's inmates appear and offer to find and kill Natsuki. They reveal that the prison barrier is still partially inactive, but it is allowing very powerful inmates to break free. One of the inmates attacks Koju, but Yukaina blocks his attack and tells Koju to flee to the town. He attacks Yukaina next, and this time Sayaka appears to fight him. She blasts some of the inmates with her magic move and Koju and the others jump on her ride. They escape quickly from the inmates and Koju fills her in about the ongoing situation. They discuss that Yuma needs a magic doctor at this point and Koju gets an idea, so he starts telling Sayaka directions on where to go. Asagi takes the little lost girl to a cafe and keeps asking her to remember where she is from. She wonders whether it's her child from the future and suddenly recalls that the child resembles Natsuki a lot, so she asks her whether she is Natsuki's daughter. The girl starts crying and Asagi gives her to Sana to shut her up. Koju brings all the girls to his mom, who is a big-shot magic doctor working in a top company, and his mom starts fangirling over the girls like a creep. They take Yuma inside and Nagisa appears as well, so Koju makes Saya distract her while her mom tries to check what's wrong with Yuma. Takes Yuma to her lab along with Yakaina. Koju meanwhile goes to the room to apply first aid to a wound on his chest that doesn't seem to be healing, and Sayaka appears in his room. She checks out his wound and offers to let him drink her blood to heal him. She then gets on the bed and extends her foot towards him because she thinks he likes to be stimulated. Yakaina barges inside just then and demands to know what they are doing. Suddenly Koju feels a sharp pain and collapses on the floor. Asagi and Sana are roaming around the market when one of the inmates finds Sana, who is actually Natsuki. Aya arrives at Koju's school and decides to make the school her foundation for her plans. Two wizards appear from the library and ask her to accompany them to the library. They remind her that she took the Dark Oath grimoire with her 10 years ago from the library, and Aya uses a spell from the same grimoire to take them down in an instant. Turns out that Koju had fallen down due to hunger and he eats pizza with the girls. Yakaina reveals that his mom named Memori made her wear a nurse outfit and that Yuma's wounds have healed, but they need a powerful witch's help to save her from dying. They accidentally see Asagi and little Natsuki on the TV, which makes them realize that Natsuki has turned into a little girl. He calls Asagi and asks her about the little girl with her. Asagi fills him in about everything that happened, and just then one of the inmates who has a fire spirit approaches her. He starts to lunge towards her, so she takes Natsuki and makes a run for it. Koju and his harem also leave to look for Asagi, and meanwhile the inmate keeps running after Asagi, so she asks her AI to help her out. The AI tells her about the escape route to take and even closes a door between Asagi and the inmate to block his path. The inmate starts to burn down the gate, so Asagi picks up the little girl and makes a run for it again. She keeps getting followed, and according to her plan the inmate runs into a water drainage flow. She then climbs upwards on the surface and the inmate follows her by making a hole through the road. They arrive at one of the island guards' gates where Astarte and a bunch of guards surround the inmate, and Astarte uses her familiar to suck the inmate's spiritual energy. He gets teleported back to the prison, and Astarte notices that Sana resembles Natsuki a lot biologically. One of the inmates named Maiga seeks out Aya and tells her that she must have gotten the key to the prison barrier when she stole Natsuki's memories. She thinks that he wants to acquire the key, but he reveals that he only wants to see her plan unfold while the inmates are busy with finding Natsuki. Koju and his girls get stuck on the way, and Koju steals a bicycle to escape and find Asagi. One of the inmates named Gigliola approaches Asagi and uses her familiar to control all the guards. The guards begin to attack Astarte, and Astarte advises Asagi to make a run for it. Gigliola attacks Asagi and Natsuki, but Vatler arrives just then and decides to fight her for entertainment's sake. He unleashes his familiar at her, and she in return uses her familiar to control his familiar. He then launches a special snake attack on her that takes her down and the snakes to eat away at her skin. The others think he is going too far, and Koju arrives at the scene just then. Gigliola gets teleported back to the prison, and Vatler realizes what's going on with Natsuki, so he offers to take her on his ship to protect her from the inmates. Koju accepts his offer, and Asagi also decides to follow them. Maiga turns out to be a Lion King organization's minion, and Aya tells him that Dark Oath grimoire was destroyed by Natsuki, due to which she's using her stolen memories to recreate its spells. She reveals that her plan is to turn the whole school into the grimoire itself, and just then Yuma wakes up at the lab. Koju takes Natsuki and Asagi to Vatler's ship and then informs Yakaina about the situation, so she advises him to control his habits around Asagi. One of Vatler's minions named Kira tells him to take a bath and even introduces him to another Lord Tobias who seems awfully jealous of Koju. He then takes a bath and a bunch of girls offer to wash him. He refuses their advances, and they reveal that they are hostages from different royal families around the first progenitor's dominion, but they are free to do anything they want. They then leave after Koju keeps refusing them, and Asagi rushes into the bath with Natsuki. He is about to go out when she asks him to spill the beans about his secret and even suggests that maybe he is gay. She explains that he seems too close with Vatler and that he doesn't want to see her body. She then notices the wound on his chest, so she gets up to check it out and her towel drops accidentally. Koju gets a nosebleed instantly and faints on the spot. Later, Asagi puts Natsuki to bed and he compliments her looks in a yukata. Suddenly Natsuki jumps up and starts to activate her sleeping mode avatar, which she had reserved as a backup for emergencies. Outside the ship, Yukaina and Sayaka face Vatler, and Vatler asks her whether she knows about the real fourth progenitor. She doesn't know what he is talking about, and one of the inmates appears looking for Natsuki. Natsuki reveals that she cannot use magic in her current form, and Asagai's AI pops on a TV to tell her that there is a mysterious force around her school which is cancelling the magic of the island which keeps it afloat. They realize that they need to check out their school to see what's going on when suddenly Vatler gets thrown in. The inmate turns out to be a guy named Brat, who is an ex-dragon slayer, and Vatler steps forward to fight him again. He summons his familiar, but Brat easily cuts down his familiar with his sword. Vatler in return summons 2 more familiars, and meanwhile another inmate appears beside Yukaina and Sayaka. Yukaina goes ahead to help Koju while Sayaka stays behind to fight him. At the same time, Koju and Asagai try to escape inside the ship, and Vatler's minion Kira shows them the way. Sayaka fights with the inmate who blocks her attacks and attacks her back. Koju and Sayaka meet up with Yukaina, and beside them the ship continues to receive a lot of damage due to Vatler's fight. A tank girl named Didier appears in a tank to escort Asagai back to the island guard so that she can protect the barrier around the island, and Vatler finishes his fight as his familiars brutally attack Brat, ultimately taking him down. Koju bids goodbye to Asagai, who makes a promise with him that he will spend time with him after everything is over. Sayaka also finishes up her fight by using a wind and electric spell on the inmate which teleports him back to the prison. She falls down, but Koju catches her and she starts to snuggle close to him, but realizes that Yukaina is watching them. She then jumps straight up, and suddenly Aya appears in front of them. She attacks them with her familiar, due to which Koju summons his familiar to attack her back. His familiar suddenly disappears as she reveals that the island has become her realm and that nobody can use their powers now. Yukaina still attacks her with her weapon, and Aya declares that she knew Yukaina would be able to use her magic. Her familiar stabs Koju while she captures Yukaina and teleports away with her. 10 years ago, Aya confronted Natsuki at the same school and asked her to hand over Dark Grimoire. Both the girls summoned their familiars, and Aya reminded her that she was only created by the corporation as a tool to control the prison barrier. Yukaina sees Natsuki's memories from a distance and gets teleported to one of the classes. Sayaka wonders how she should heal Koju since his regeneration powers aren't doing much, and of course she gets the same idea that she always gets, which is to give her blood to him. She starts to strip and even shows him her plot, but nothing works on him. Yuma arrives at the scene and tells Sayaka that she wants to give her blood as well since that's the trend in the market now. Yukaina dreams that Koju and Sayaka are in her class, but she immediately realizes that she is dreaming and snaps out of it. Aya tells her that she can make her dream true and that she is doing an experiment on her currently. Yuma makes Sayaka strip and then nicks her own neck to prep herself. She reveals that she can still use her powers, due to which Koju might gain his vampire powers by drinking her blood, and then gets on top of him. Koju pushes her down and starts drinking her blood. When he is done, the naughty boy then lunges at Sayaka and drinks her blood next, after which he declares that he won't let anyone die. His wound on the chest still doesn't heal, and he gets a vision from previous progenitor Aurora telling him that he shouldn't be concerned with forms. He realizes that another familiar has awakened, so he calls forth his fourth familiar next. His familiar starts to turn the whole island into mist to stop it from falling apart, and at another place, Yaze and another girl discuss how Koju has to destroy the island whenever he wishes. Aya yaps to Yukaina that she wishes to change the world into her own version, and suddenly she senses a great power coming towards her. Koju summons his third familiar and uses it to break the school barrier and free Yukaina. He faces Aya to fight her while Yukaina flees with Natsuki and meets up with Sayaka. She then joins Koju, and Aya summons a bunch of inmates to fight them as well. Koju uses his familiar to knock the inmates down, and Yukaina lunges at her. Her weapon breaks her barrier and she runs away from Yukaina. She summons a familiar to grab Yukaina and is about to attack her further when Natsuki suddenly appears and uses her golden familiar to block her attacks. She seems to have temporarily gotten back her magic and then takes the grimoire back from Aya. She then binds Aya's familiar with her chains, which break its barrier, and Yuma's familiar emerges from within. The familiar goes back to Yuma and restores her spirit, while Natsuki tells Aya to return to the prison. Aya uses her last move, which is to feed her soul to a demon to turn into a demon herself. Yukaina reminds Koju that her weapon Sekuru can turn things back to their original state, so Koju summons his familiar to deal with Aya's attacks. Yukaina then rushes in and lands the finishing blow, which returns back Aya to them. Meanwhile, one of the inmates called Maiga gets his hand on a weapon on the island, and a Lion King organization's girl appears to ask him about his plans. She calls him Itagami Maiga and he leaves with the weapon. Later Koju and Yukaina watch the fireworks and Yuma comes to bid them goodbye because she has a lengthy interrogation to deal with. She kisses Koju on the mouth before leaving, and afterwards Yukaina tells Koju to always stay by his side. Their friends overhear her cringe declaration and start teasing her endlessly. A person named Ko breaks into Kanase's lab and Kanase recognizes him as an ex-student studying under a person named Nina. Ko reminds him that he has come to acquire his master Nina's keepsake and to get his own body back before attacking Kanase brutally. Meanwhile Yukaina is taking a bath when a Shikigami breaks through her barrier and delivers a letter to her. Koju then goes on a shopping trip with the girls where Nagisa, Yukaina and Canon discuss the upcoming training camp trip on the mainland. Even Yukaina can go because her weapon will be disbanded for 4 upcoming days, and the girls soon go to shop for undergarments. Koju comes across Ko in the market and immediately senses that he is a sus dude. Ko tries to sneakily attack him, but Koju blocks his attack and Ko reveals that he wants to acquire Canon to present her as an offering. He mentions Adelard's monastery, and when he attacks Koju the next time, Yukaina blocks his attack and cuts his arm down. He realizes that he is outnumbered, so he uses a nearby pole to convert it into his arm and then runs away. Yukaina and Koju discuss how Ko was an alchemist and that they need to look into Canon's monastery. The next day, Koju approaches Natsuki but doesn't find her in the office. Astarte informs him there was once a person named Nina Adelard who used the power of Wiseman's blood she created to gain immortality, and Koju realizes that Canon's monastery was also called Adelard Monastery. He makes a Seijai search about the Adelard Monastery incident that happened 5 years ago, but she doesn't find any details. They both then visit the monastery, but Nagisa spots them midway and tells them that Kanase was attacked by the alchemist Ko, due to which the island guard is monitoring everything now. She decides to let the training camp resume and also orders the both of them to take supplementary classes as a punishment for ditching their classes. Koju later informs Yukaina about everything and she takes him to a hotel area where he starts to get a wrong idea about her intentions. She then makes him go through a barrier which leads to the Lion King organization branch office, and they both enter the office to find a Shikigami which is built in Sayaka's shape. Ko shows a bunch of old dudes how the Wiseman blood works by merging it with a metal frame, and he thanks one of the men for saving his life 5 years ago by giving him a dummy body core. The man promises to reward him once he will gain immortality. Yukaina gives her weapon Sekuru to her teacher Indu, who has appeared in the form of a cat, and Indu comments that Sekuru seems to have accepted her already. She thanks Koju for saving Aurora from her sleeping beauty lifestyle and even points out that Yukaina seems to have the hots for him. Koju gets a call from a Seijai asking him for help in finding her earring that she lost near the monastery. At the same time, Ko uses the Wiseman's blood to envelop the old man, and Nina Adelard's spirit comes to surface as the process begins. The spirit starts to consume the old man and his men try stopping Ko, but he kills all of them. Koju tells a Seijai to get away from the monastery just as Nina's spirit and the Wiseman blood merge to form a weird shape of blood. A Seijai spots the weird thing and Ko attacks her to get rid of the evidence. Nina's spirit runs away and Ko runs after it while a Seijai collapses on the ground. Koju arrives at the scene only to find a Seijai's dead body, and he starts to have a mental breakdown because he doesn't want to lose one of his harem girls. Sayaka's Shikigami protects Yukaina as Koju's powers start to go berserk, and Yukaina reminds him that he will kill Nagisa and everyone on the island. He calms down and Ko appears at the scene as well. Koju confronts him and he and Yukaina then attack him. Ko attacks him back and his core breaks, which allows him to fully turn into any metal or substance that he wants. They both realize that he isn't even human at this point, so Koju summons his familiar who consumes Ko fully. Suddenly a Seijai stands up again and asks them what's going on. They don't know what's happening, but they take her away from the scene and Yukaina heads to the organization's office to report everything, while Koju decides to take a Seijai to his mom Memori to get her checked up. Since she is all bloodied currently, they both head to his home first, where a Seijai takes a bath first. She notices a weird metal on her body and suddenly collapses on the floor. A moment later, she steps outside in all her glory, which makes Koju almost faint due to bloodlust. He asks her to cover up, so she uses alchemy to conjure a towel and explains to Koju that she is actually Nina Adelard. She reveals that the stone on a Seijai's body called Hard Stone is actually her body, and that it's actually the control module for Wiseman's blood. She yaps endlessly about the wise man's blood and even reveals that Ko has managed to survive by cutting a part of his body and escaping. At the same time, Ko comes across Natsuki and Astarte, and he promises to acquire Canon to finish what he started 5 years ago. He attacks them, so Astarte attacks him back and breaks his body. Natsuki then picks up his core and wonders about the incident that happened 5 years ago at the monastery. Nina promises Koju that she will leave a Seijai's body once she finds Wiseman's blood, and he makes her wear actual clothes. Nagisa then brings Yukaina home and Nina learns from the girls that Canon is much livelier now and is doing better. The next morning Yukaina and Nagisa leave for their training camp and Koju decides not to tell Yukaina anything about Nina. He then rushes into his room to find a Seijai who seems confused and he explains to her that nothing happened between them. She transforms back into Nina and on the other side of the island, the Wiseman blood jumps into action. It comes out of the drainage since it was stored in the monastery ruins all along and the island guards try to take the Wiseman's blood down. They freeze the blood since it's actually liquid metal and Ko arrives at the scene. The Wiseman's blood contains the old man's body as well which becomes enraged on seeing Ko and the blood breaks out of the ice to attack Ko. The guards keep shooting at it and the blood absorbs all the metal bullets until it finally explodes. The explosion takes down all the guards and Koju and Nina then arrive at the scene. Nina reveals that the blood actually belonged to a person named Wiseman and that he has finally awakened after getting powerful. The junior high girls enjoy their cruise tour while Canon tries to spot dolphins in the sea and just then Wiseman's blood rushes through the water towards the ship. Ko takes over the driving pit of the ship and thinks about how he will get his body back finally. Koju and Nina walk through the wrecked port and notice a bunch of human bones as well and Nina reveals that the bones belong to children and the nuns from the monastery. She starts to strip her clothes and takes out the hard stone in her body as she wonders whether she can build her body back. Yukaina and Canon meet to discuss the weird presence they are feeling and just then Ko appears in front of them. Canon reveals that Ko attacked her monastery 5 years ago to search for a powerful medium for an offering and she runs away from him. Nina's body gets resurrected in the form of a Seijai and Natsuki arrives at the scene so Koju fills her in about the ongoing situation. They discuss that Ko needs a powerful offering like Canon or Yukaina to resurrect Wiseman and Natsuki teleports them to an airship which can pursue the other ship. La Folia appears in the form of a projection and offers him the best airship of her country while Yukina's teacher also appears with Sayaka. They give Yukina's weapon to him and tell him to take care of Yukaina. Ko corners Canon on the ship deck and declares that he wants to become human. She asks him where he was born or when he was born but he doesn't seem to remember anything about his past and she reveals that he wasn't even human in the past which triggers him. He attacks her but Yukaina blocks him and he conjures a number of his forms to fight them. Suddenly a cruise missile hits the ship and delivers Nina and Koju on the ship. Koju then gives Yukaina her weapon and they all take on Ko who has gone a little cuckoo in his head. Yukaina uses her weapon while Koju uses his familiar to defeat his minions and Nina tells him to hand over Wiseman's ashes to her. She reminds him that Wiseman only created him as a homunculus to get his wish granted and that he needs to feel like a human at heart. Ko drops the skull he is holding which turns out to be the Wiseman skull and the ugly skull reveals that he was actually bidding time to absorb all the metals from the seawater to conjure his final form. The skull transforms into an ugly-looking monster which launches a beam at the ship and Koju uses his familiar to turn the ship into the mist for a second to protect everyone. He himself turns into a frozen statue who cannot live or cannot be killed and Yukaina starts to cry like a wuss at his feet. Suddenly everything freezes for an instant and a girl appears. She kisses Koju's frozen lips and helps him revive. One of Koju's familiar awakens just then and Yukaina realizes that the familiar still doesn't accept him so she jumps at Koju and kisses him. He in return starts drinking her blood to get more power and just then Wiseman appears behind them to attack them. Koju blocks his attack and he and Yukaina step forward to take him down. Ko also stands in their way so Yukaina takes him on first and asks him to search for his purpose. He seems to be blindly following Wiseman's orders and Yukaina uses Sekiru's powers to take him down and kill him. Koju summons all his familiars to fight Wiseman and finally summons his new familiar that he has just awakened. The new familiar grabs Wiseman's neck and uses her powers to turn back time on his body. Slowly his body transforms into nothing and Koju wins the battle. He wakes up after a while to find that Nina has turned into a small doll-like girl and an airship comes to pick everyone up. Yukaina has a dream that Koju leaves her and she tries to stop him by saying something. She wakes up in tears and wonders what she was going to say to him. Later she and Koju head to school together and she asks him what he would do if she were to go away. He lazily answers that it will make things easier for both of them which pisses her off. Later her class teacher asks her to distribute questionnaires to her classmates about their future plans and even asks her to think about what she wants to do in the future. Sayaka and Vatler discuss how a dragon line is acting out beneath the island when they suddenly feel a magical tremor in the sea. Meanwhile Koju and Yaze notice Yukaina who bumps into a door and Koju asks her whether she is alright but she starts acting strange by calling him the wrong name and fangirling over Yaze. Koju takes her to a side to ask her what's wrong with her and she asks him endless questions about her role in his life and whether he has drunk her blood. Natsuki also arrives and she calls her a midget which makes Natsuki suspect that something is wrong with her. She also calls Nagisa her aunt and Asagi a doctor. She keeps fangirling over Koju's harem girls endlessly, which somehow turns her on, and she runs away while Koju follows her. Vatler and Sayaka feel powerful magic in the sea, and Vatler sends his familiar down in the sea to test his theory out. Suddenly a dragon flies up in the air and vanishes quickly. Koju points out to the fake Yukaina that she seems to be having vampire bloodlust and demands to know who she is. Suddenly Yukaina appears and asks him to get away from fake Yukaina. The fake version starts yapping that Yukaina never listens to anything, and Koju tries to make things right between both the girls. Suddenly the dragon appears above them and Natsuki senses something, so she summons dimensional magic around the school. The dragon teleports its tail and pierces the fake Yukaina, which knocks her down. It also attacks Koju and starts to leech onto him as it starts sucking his magic. Koju backs away from him and Yukaina rushes to attack the beast. She fails to land a proper hit, so she jumps behind him and launches her powerful attack on his back. Her weapon breaks and she is about to be barbecued on the spot when the other Yukaina gets up and summons a weapon of her own. She uses the weapon to immobilize the dragon and it vanishes away. Natsuki appears and declares that she is taking the fake Yukaina away while the real Yukaina goes into depression over her broken weapon. Later she packs the weapon to send it back to her organization when she gets a letter from her organization summoning her back to the High God Forest where she grew up. The fake Yukaina tells Canon and Nina that she has come from the future in pursuit of the dragon, which is actually a man-made beast created via an experiment. She explains that the dragon can travel time, distort space, and feeds on the dragon veins, which means that the island will sink if it stays on the island. Asagi gets an alert that everything is breaking apart in the island, and she tries fixing everything as much as she can. Sayaka tells Koju and Yukaina about the dragon's true nature, and Yukaina starts whining about her return to her home. Koju doesn't say anything to stop her, so she starts crying and runs away. Koju thinks that it's also best for her to stay away from him, so Sayaka slaps him to bring him into his senses. She gives him the world's longest speech about how Yukaina doesn't actually want to go, and he finally grows some balls, so he decides to stop her. The dragon appears above the buildings and the island guards try to stop him, but it easily takes them down. Asagi calls Koju to tell him that the island will sink in 30 hours and then starts to confess her feelings to him, but the phone gets disconnected. The whole island starts to shake and Yukaina feels the tremor at the airport, but she doesn't think she should go to Koju. The fake Yukaina appears and asks her to be honest, which makes Yukaina blurt out that she wants to be with Koju. The fake Yukaina then conjures a magical spell and thinks that maybe her purpose behind the time travel was to give Yukaina her new weapon. Koju summons his familiar, who takes down the dragon, but the dragon absorbs even more of the island's energy to revive itself. A star appears to block its next attack, and even Natsuki arrives to help them out. Sayaka also joins the group, and Koju then summons two more of his familiars to tackle the beast. Sayaka launches an attack on the dragon while Koju attacks him with his familiar, but the beast grabs his familiar and starts absorbing its energy, which electrocutes Koju too. Vatler appears and declares that he will unleash all his powers to take the dragon down, but the island will sink too. Before he can unleash his powers, Yukaina jumps in to stop him with her new Sekuru. The fake Yukaina arrives with her and reveals that Sekuru actually broke because it couldn't stand her ultra-magnificent powers that she had gotten in the island, due to which the future Sekuru should be more fit for her. Yukaina slices away at the dragon and then stabs it, which temporarily brings him down. She offers herself to Koju, so he starts drinking her blood in front of everyone. The dragon gets up and attacks them again, but this time Koju and Yukaina step forward to fight him. The fake Yukaina joins Yukaina and they decide to use both their weapons together to stop the dragon. They both rush towards the dragon with linked weapons and manage to cut his tail, which was absorbing magic. Koju then uses his familiar to completely destroy the dragon and the island returns to its normal condition. Sayaka tells Yukaina that the organization is only summoning her back for a temporary medical checkup, and the fake Yukaina promises Koju and Yukaina that she will meet them one day. She calls Yukaina her mom and suddenly disappears. Both Koju and Yukaina awkwardly wonder whether they were her parents, but they avoid talking about it since they are hopeless idiots. In the future, the fake Yukaina named Reina returns to her world and learns that Asagi has gone out to capture the perpetrators behind the magical beast. She tells her friend that she had a great time in the past seeing her mom and her vampire dad. That's all for today, my fellow men of culture. If you liked the video, don't forget to subscribe the channel for more anime recaps.